We are recording now, as you probably just heard. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is session number 2 of a 15-part series on UL System financial wellness that we are running this summer as part of our Bridging the Divide program for the UL System. As you may or may not know, the UL System has 5 content experts. Let's see if I can get them all. Mental health, research, online learning, open education, and financial literacy. I am Brian Bolton. I'm a finance professor at UL Lafayette. I'm also privileged to serve as the UL System content expert on financial literacy. And what I do in that role is I create programs, tools, resources to help members of the UL System community improve their financial literacy, improve their financial planning, and just kind of overall improve their financial wellness. We've got 15 sessions, and I'm not supposed to have a favorite, but this topic is maybe my favorite. And it's my favorite because I've been doing financial planning stuff on campus here in Lafayette for several years. And we've made the programming we have here is most advanced, sophisticated, developed with our grad students. And we think that's true for for 3 reasons, maybe. One, grad students maybe are they have the most sensitive financial situations if they're spending a lot of time in class in the lab and they may not have time to work. And so financial awareness is really important. Perhaps we have more international students in our graduate programs than in our undergraduate programs, and learning about US system of financial planning and financial wellness is part of the attraction. I will note that tomorrow at 3 p.m., Thursday, June 8th, we will be doing a session on tax and financial planning for international students, both undergrad and grad. We get a lot of engagement in Lafayette from our graduate students. Tomorrow, obviously open to anyone and everyone. I'm looking forward to it. And maybe the third reason why financial planning for grad students has made a lot of traction or gotten a lot more popular than some of the other groups is grad students are about to graduate, become adults, or become working as adults, and things are about to get real. Financial aid is about to become due, or you're going to start repaying some of your student loans. You're maybe choosing between different job offers, trying to figure out what's in a job offer, what is a 401k, what are the tax obligations, and many of our grad students are married, many have children, and so their financial lives are maybe more complex than many of our traditional 20-year-old undergrads. So that's my long preamble to say I love this topic. The downside is we're going to try to cover about 30 minutes of material. And so I'll shut up, which is not nearly enough, but I'll stop rambling. I'm not going to shut up. I'll stop rambling and kind of get to the content. That's me, Brian Bolton, Brian.Bolton at Louisiana, based at Lafayette, working with the UL System. I've got a website that is more of a repository for webinars, workshops like this, business.louisiana.edu/finance is personal. I chose that tagline, finance is personal, because it's one of the cliches I use a lot in this work. We all have different situations. We all have different needs, goals. And if you're a grad student, whether you're master's getting a PhD in philosophy or a master's in engineering, you're going to have very different contexts, needs, goals, situations. And so personal finance has to be personal. We can teach some foundations and some financial literacy concepts to everyone, but it has to be made personal. And so I give you my contact information. So if you ever need to make it personal and want to talk to someone, no judgment, no shame, no ego, I'd love to sit down and work with you about whatever your needs are, whatever your issues are. So feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned, this is the second session. There we are. We did adults returning to finish a degree yesterday. We'll do financial tax planning for international students tomorrow. But today's focus is financial planning for graduate students. You can look at the menu of other sessions. Again, as I said yesterday, if I have any topics or dates or times wrong in this slide. I will correct the slide. The UL system schedule is correct. So if you have something written down that's different than this, what you have written down is probably correct. What we're doing this year, so last year we did webinars, workshops on specific financial planning issues like investing for retirement, investing for education, budgeting, insurance, taxes. And what we're doing this year, as this slide maybe shows, is more focused topics. Focused topics with focused audiences. And so today's session is for graduate students. We probably don't have a lot of faculty here today. Maybe we do. Tomorrow will be international students. That's topics that will appeal to many staff and faculty, but we may not get a lot of permanent resident domestic U.S. students. And that's fine, right? We wanted to focus on the audience this year and try to address issues, topics that are common to specific audiences rather than just generic broad brushes of topics. You also see that we've got some more generic topics, whether it's changing careers or building savings accounts. Side hustles, we're doing a couple sessions on side hustles and entrepreneurship. That'll be fun. But more focused topics this year than we've done in the past. Yeah, I'll try to stop rambling. This is the foundation of everything I'm trying to do. Happiness, we're trying to achieve some type of happiness. We've got our financial needs, our family needs. We've got short-term goals, we've got long-term goals. And this, I created this diagram in the work I do with grad students at UL Lafayette. Grad students have this enormous tension, this visceral tension between short-term goals and long-term goals. They're grad students, I know I'm stereotyping or generalizing, but hopefully there's some element of truth in these generalizations. Grad students are very, very good at focusing on the short term, focusing on the next exam, next, study in the lab, the next, research analysis report, paper, whatever. But then there comes grad students, maybe because they're advisors, because of the program, whatever, aren't always focused on the long term. Even though grad school by itself is a long-term initiative, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, or just certainly focused on the long term. And so trying to get this balance between short-term and long-term with grad students is something we push a lot. And what I'll introduce today is 7 goals for grad students that balance, I hope, some short-term ideas and some long-term ideas. And as I said earlier, grad students may be unique in kind of the family dynamics relative to traditional undergrads, or certainly financial needs. Many of our grad students are more financially independent than undergrads. And so the financial stresses, pressures, priorities may be more tangible for many grad students. So this diagram, I'll probably show it in at least 10 of the 15 sessions, but I actually did create it for grad student programming just because that long-term, short-term, family versus financial, those tensions are so profound. I use a lot of quotes in this work. It takes as much energy to plan as it does to wish. Most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is mere tenacity. Grad students are really good at acting and being tenacious in their studies. And what I try to do is introduce and encourage or nudge maybe grad students to have that same tenacity or at least planning perspective with their financial planning. Again, because grad students, life's about to get real. Grad students are making that transition from being a student to being independent, working, family-oriented professional with all the independence and obligations thereof. And the action and the planning becomes so much more important. This is my framework, and what I said earlier, when we do a session, framework of financial planning. And when we do the workshops at UL Lafayette, we'll do 10 or 12 workshops a year in an academic year, focused on all the stuff in red. All these issues down here at the bottom of the red: investing, budgeting, debt management, taxes, insurance, and education. We'll have different workshops focused on those topics for grad students. but in reality, we each of us as individuals, and certainly grad students, need to kind of go backwards and identify what our gut values are, what our goals are, what our dreams are, and then think about our current situation. If you're a first year grad student in a PhD program, the end of the road is several years away. If you are in a 1 year master's program, the end of the road is very, very, very soon. And so your financial obligations and needs will be coming at you quicker. And so understanding your current situation, and not to mention, family situation, or if you're able to work full time, perhaps during grad school. So personal finance is personal. We can create a personal financial plan down here with this red stuff, but it all depends on your situation, your values, your dreams, your goals. Focused on grad students today, and so I highlighted the education. What you're doing in grad school will impact everything else you're trying to do, everything else that's going to happen, and also your financial situation and obligations. It's all related. It's also all personal. So something to maybe to take away is 7 financial goals, financial strategies, financial tools for all grad students to try. So we've got short-term, we've got long-term. And if my grad students can make progress on 2 to 3 of these within the next 6 months, that's a huge win. One of the biggest challenges with being a grad student is you don't have any money. And so managing an income of 0 and choosing kind of that long-term perspective of financial planning seems kind of very abstract or impossible when you don't have income. But what I want to try to present is some strategies, goals that everyone can try, even if they don't feel like they have the financial means to fully execute just yet. That's fine. That'll change. That's why you're in grad school. Most of our grad students are in grad school to obtain the financial means to be more financially independent or financially in control. So let's think of these 7. Short term, once every semester. Track every penny that you spend, every penny that you earn. Every penny that you earn, maybe that's just from a graduate assistantship, maybe it's from your full-time job. But whatever your source of income, track every penny. Tracking income is usually a lot easier than tracking expenses. Track every penny that you spend. And when I say track, your bank is probably going to do this for you, but I want you to sit down and read through that statement and find out what your habits are and categorize your spending either as discretionary, so voluntary, non-essential, and non-discretionary, the essentials: rent, food, phone, insurance. And I want you to do this, and I want you to be intentional with it, deliberate with it, to really look in the mirror and identify your habits and behaviors. Just looking at your bank statement saying, okay, yeah, I spent $2,100 this month, that seems right. That's not enough. What you really, to change your behavior and to align with your goals, what you really need to do is look at that $2,100 and see how much of that was on coffee, how much of that was on rent, how much of that can you avoid, how much can that change, how much was after 10 p.m. on a Friday night, and how much was a subscription. And so by sitting down and analyzing your behavior, again, no judgment in personal finance. You get to judge yourself, but nobody else is going to judge you. If you sit down, you look in the mirror, you see what your behaviors are, and begin thinking about where you can improve. As grad students, you may not have a lot of income, which means controlling your expenses, managing your expenses, and potentially reducing your expenses becomes even more important. So every semester, starting this summer or this fall, see if you can track every penny that you spend, every penny that you earn. Once you've done that, the next 3 months, or within 3 months of doing that, look in the mirror, identify ways to cut your discretionary spending by 25%. As a bonus, see if you can decrease your non-discretionary spending by 10%. So you probably have to have auto insurance, maybe renter's insurance, maybe health insurance. But can you shop around and see if you can switch insurance companies and get a better deal? Can you switch cell phone carriers? Can you work from home more and use less gas? Food is always an interesting one because we all need to eat, but there's a difference between bringing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from home and going out to wherever your favorite restaurant is, right? And so eating is not discretionary, but how much you spend on food can be discretionary. I'm not advocating peanut butter and jelly sandwich for every meal, but if you're struggling for cash flow, then maybe adding something a little more cost effective or efficient to your diet will serve you in the long term. So especially your discretionary spending. Non-discretionary, you may not be able to reduce it all, but your discretionary, and this is the Friday nights after 10 p.m., this is the coffee, this is potentially the clothes. If you are married, if you have kids, you may not be, all of your spending may be tied up in non-discretionary, and you may have very few degrees of freedom in how to reduce your discretionary, because you may not have much discretionary. But look in the mirror, go down line item by line item, category by category, and see if you can reduce your discretionary. Again, discretionary is non-essential, voluntary, impulse or indulgent expenses by 25%. And then your non-discretionary, the required, the needs, by 10%. Within the next 6 months, make a plan to manage and pay off your debt. I'm not saying pay it off. I'm saying make a plan. Identify all your debt. Make a list of all your debt. If you have 2 or 3 student loans, if you've got credit card, if you've got a car loan, whatever other debt you have, identify the dollar amounts that you owe. And that may take a little bit of online research that should be relatively easy, or straightforward. But maybe you've never done it before. You've never looked at the balances. You've never looked at the rates. You've never looked at the terms. Do that. Figure out which debt is your worst debt. Your worst debt is probably your highest interest rate debt, and or your debt with the most fees or the most oppressive or restrictive terms. And prioritize it. Can you get rid of any of your debt during school? And the answer may be no. No, you just don't have the cash flow, or you don't have the flexibility. I have a grad student on campus here who did this, found out that she had 7 or 8 sources of debt, and 3 or 4 were pretty oppressive. And she was able to consolidate all of her debt into one loan. She didn't necessarily reduce the total amount that she owes, but by consolidating, she was able to get rid of the really bad debt and make all debt essentially have the same terms. And so she didn't reduce the amount, but she was able to renegotiate or consolidate and renegotiate the terms. And so if you have some debt that's flexible, that you can consolidate or move into terms, or just pay off anytime you want, that's good. That's good. That gives us flexibility. You want to get rid of the bad debt as early and quickly as possible. We'll see that goal in another goal in just a second. And then begin thinking about how you're going to pay off your debt over time, whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Begin thinking, make that plan. Again, in grad school, you may not have the means to pay anything off, but make a plan. And again, there's no judgment. You're the only one who will see this plan, will know what's in the plan, know what your debt is. You're the only one that gets to judge you. It doesn't really matter if you judge yourself, so long as you're making a plan to improve your financial wellness and your financial situation. So in the next 6 months, identify your debt, make a plan to pay it off. Within the next 6 to 12 months, open multiple savings accounts, one for each of your financial goals. As I said earlier, this might seem really abstract to grad students who may not have a lot of income or a lot of money, but I bet you have financial goals. Maybe you want to save for retirement. Maybe you want to save for a new car. Maybe you want to save for your children or a wedding. Open multiple savings accounts, one savings account for each of your financial goals. And I encourage people to do this, grad students and really anyone else, because our brains engage in something called mental budgeting, which means we mentally manage money better when it's separated, when it's assigned to different purposes. There's a difference between having $1,000 in your bank account versus having 500 in 2 separate bank accounts. Same amount of money, but our brains think about it differently. And our brains think that 500 and 500 is allocated to specific purposes differently than that full 1,000. And so if you have specific goals, again, for a wedding, for a new car, for retirement, whatever, maybe it's specific goals, maybe it's different time horizons, go to your bank or go online and create different multiple savings accounts, one for each goal. As a grad student, you may not, I bet you have the goals, but you may not feel like you have the money. Put 20 bucks in each savings account. You may not be able to make progress towards paying for your wedding, paying for the new car just yet until you graduate and get the higher paying job. But by opening the savings accounts, you've got the foundation set for when you do begin getting the income that you want, that you need. You've got the platform set up. And so a couple of examples, if you've got goals of a vacation, a new car, a new house, and an emergency fund, you get a paycheck, pay your bills, and then whatever's left over of the bills, you put some into your emergency fund. Talk about that again in just a second. Maybe put it into vacation, put 50 into vacation, 100 into the new car, and 200 into the new house. Or maybe it's not, 200, 150, maybe it's 5, 10, 20. Whatever you have, if you can begin putting into those savings buckets, those savings accounts, your brain will associate that with purpose and with progress. So maybe it's not specific purposes, maybe it's time frame. Maybe your emergency fund is focused on the really immediate 3 to 6 months. And it says of discretionary expenses. It should say non-discretionary. I apologize. I'll change that. Maybe you got a short and medium term goals. Maybe this is the new car and the wedding, and you combine those into short and medium term goals, and then you got the long term goals. Got the dotted line to suggest maybe that's just the leftover, that it's really difficult, too abstract to think about long term as a grad student. But maybe over time you can begin thinking about the long term, or you can at least set it up. Or by having these multiple buckets, it's not just mental budgeting, but you can assign different risk. And by assigning different risk to each account, each bucket, you can maybe get different returns. So maybe your checking and savings account, you just put in cash, you're not getting any returns, there's no risk, every dollar you put in is guaranteed that you'll get it back. But with maybe the short to medium or long-term and certainly retirement accounts, you take on some riskier investments that might generate much higher returns. When I say riskier, don't be scared of risk in investing. There is always risk if you pay attention to financial markets, of stock prices, investment prices falling, house prices falling. But over time, past 150 years, higher risk, and I'm looking at the retirement accounts now, the higher risk investments have returned about 12% per year. And choosing investments with some risk, whether it's 8 to 12% goals or 3 to 7, that can be the key to building wealth. Again, as a grad student, it may be very difficult, abstract, annoying to think about these kind of frameworks because you don't have the income you want. But if you set up this foundation, when you do have the income, it'll be much easier to move 20 bucks into a retirement account, 10 bucks into a long-term goal, so forth. So mental budgeting and risk return are the reasons to set up multiple accounts. Within the next 12 months, open an IRA. IRA stands for individual retirement account. There are 2 types of IRAs available to us: the traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. At UL Lafayette, we do workshops on we sit down and we help grad students actually open retirement accounts. For the most part, if you are a graduate student, a Roth IRA is going to be better for you. It's going to be better for you because I assume that your income is relatively low, which means your tax bracket or your tax rate is relatively low. The Roth IRA does not have current tax benefits. It has huge tax benefits in retirement. And so right now, while your tax rate is relatively low because your income is relatively low, there's no big tax benefit you can get. And so the Roth IRA, if you invest in a Roth IRA today, you'll get huge tax benefits in the future. If you're working full-time and you have a pretty high income right now, then maybe a traditional IRA is better for you. With either type of IRA, you can contribute $6,500 per year, $7,500 per year if you're over 50 years old. You can invest in stocks, bonds, just about any publicly traded security. You can't do cryptocurrency. You can't do real estate directly. You can't put a house in there. But lots of different options. And you don't have to invest $6,500. You can invest $10. And some of the grad students that we open accounts with here, they'll put $20 in, and they'll do so knowing they're not going to be able to invest anything else until they get their full-time job. And that's fine. So long as you have the account open, you can then access it again anytime you want. If you're unsure about which is better for you, feel free to reach out to me, or feel free to open both. You can do this with Robinhood. You can do it with Fidelity. The students we work with, those are the two most popular platforms or brokerage houses, Robinhood and Fidelity. And the students we work with kind of give differing opinions of which is better. Fidelity is more kind of old school, traditional, full service brokerage. Robinhood, everything's online, everything is maybe a little flashier, a little more, the user experience is maybe a little smoother. But some people don't like their financial transaction user experience to be really smooth, because that can also be dangerous. It might be too easy to click on things and do things with 1 or 2 clicks with your money that maybe you want to be a little more intentional or thoughtful with. So open an IRA. Don't wait 12 months. Feel free to do that in the next 12 days. It'll take you about 10 minutes online. And it's real easy to connect a bank account to any brokerage account or IRA and transfer $6,500 or $1.65. Whatever you're able to do, having the account open will help you in the long term. And again, you can have multiple accounts. Right now, I probably have 3 retirement accounts. Over my life, I've had probably, at any point, I've probably had 5 retirement accounts, and over time I've consolidated them. But by having multiple retirement accounts, it gives you income and tax flexibility in retirement, which is flexibility is a good thing. Within 2 years of graduation, try to have an emergency fund savings account with 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary expenses. This is not necessarily something that you're going to be able to do while in grad school. Grad school, you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're living grant to grant, whatever the case may be. But if you can prioritize and think about how you create an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary expenses in it, you're going to be much more financially healthy and comfortable, and less stress, less anxiety. Especially if you have a family, especially if you have children, especially if you go into a job that doesn't have very high security. If you go into a tenure track faculty position, it's maybe less important to have an emergency fund with 3 to 6 months of non-discretionary expenses, because you have maybe job security. If you're an entrepreneur and pursuing less secure jobs, having this emergency fund will be critical. Let me clarify something I said about tenure track positions. I get paid, I'm in a tenure track position, I get paid 10 months a year. I do not get paid in July or June or July. My next paycheck, today's June 7th, my next paycheck will come August 31st. I've spent the past 6 months building my summer emergency fund account to pay for rent and food. If you go into a tenure track position or some other type of faculty position, you're probably not going to get paid in the summer. And so having the willpower, planning, foresight to build up an emergency fund for the summer will be essential. For everyone else, all other grad students, if you can build this up within 2 years of graduation, that's a big win. It'll bring you peace of mind, control, flexibility, and kind of everything else you want as an adult and a professional as you begin your new career. Within 3 years of graduation, eliminate all of your bad debt. You already prioritized your debt, you made the strategy, see if you can get rid of the bad debt within 3 years of graduation. You can do it during school, great. But as we looked at with the savings accounts, if you make really good investments, we'll talk about investments later this summer, you make really good investments, you're going to earn 10 to 12%. But if you're paying 19.99% on a credit card, many people are paying 25 to 30% on credit cards now. Just getting rid of that high cost, high fee debt is the best budget hack possible, the best investment you can make other than education. And so first identify your bad debt and then pay it off. The bad debt can be one of the biggest anchors on financial wellness, financial independence you will ever have. While you're in grad school, you can make a plan to pay it off. You may not have the income to begin paying it off unless you could do a consolidation potentially, like one of my friend's student here did. But try to, within 3 years of graduation, get rid of all of your bad debt. Your future self will thank you. So that's my template of 7 goals. I will quickly, we're at the 30-minute mark. I'll quickly go through some challenges for you, some budget challenges. Won't spend a lot of time on them in the interest of time, but if you can attack 2 or 3 of these goals within the next year, that's a huge win. You can certainly open an IRA. You can certainly make a plan to pay off your debt. You can certainly track every penny each semester while you're in grad school. These do not, what I like about these goals is they do not require huge income. Maybe opening an IRA or creating an emergency fund requires some income, but you're in grad school to increase your income. You will have that income. Just doing as much planning and as much kind of introspection as you can while in grad school will set you up to be even more effective with your financial planning once you have the income, once you have your dream job. So those are 7 goals. Let's look at 10 challenges. And I'm going to go through these quickly. I'm going to roll through these. I've got these. We'll share the slides. The slides will be this presentation has been recorded, so you can refer back to these if I go through too quickly. But these are budget hacks. This is one of the few things grad students can control is their expenses, or maybe they can control their expenses. And so here's 10 ideas maybe for controlling your expenses. First and foremost, set goals. Set 5 financial goals for the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. Or pick your time horizons, right? During school, after school, long term. If you can improve your habits and you can improve your perspective and behavior, your future self will really thank you once you get the income that you want. And just having that control, having goals will give you better perspective, better plan, and better control. So set goals, set financial goals. Something I've done most of my adult life is I've set time limits. I don't spend money after 8 p.m. I'm out to dinner at a bar with friends. Yeah, I'll pay the bill, but I'm not shopping at home after 8 p.m. I'm not shopping, not going to the mall after 8 p.m. And you pick your own time. But this level of restraint, you pick your own challenge or your own constraint. This level of constraint just prevents me from impulse purchases and frivolous spending that doesn't really align with my goals. I also have similar willpower with big dollar purchases. Any purchase I'm going to make over $100, I don't allow that to be an impulse purchase. I think about it for 24 hours. Sometimes I forget about it. Sometimes I don't want any more. The exception to this is groceries. If I go to Costco or the grocery store and the bill is $150, I'm going to pay the $150. That food will get eaten. But for anything else, whether it's shoes or an airplane ticket or whatever else I might need, over $100, take a few deep breaths, wait 24 hours before pulling the trigger and purchasing. And half the time I don't end up purchasing. Well, maybe 80% of the time I don't end up purchasing. As soon as you get each paycheck, pay yourself. When I was in grad school, I did this. And frequently, about the 10th or 15th of the month, I would move the money out of savings back into checking because I needed food. But what it did is it built the habit. And it built the habit of automatically paying myself first, the first of the month, explicitly saving $25. Once your income gets bigger, you move that 25 to 50 and 100 and 250 or whatever you're able to do. But building that habit, as we talked about earlier, having the separate accounts, checking, savings, maybe multiple savings accounts, your brain will engage in mental budgeting. The money will be earmarked for different purposes, and those purposes will be aligned with your goals. But getting in the habit of paying yourself first, saving is not optional, saving is a priority. You can build that in grad school, even if you don't have the cash flow that you think you want or think you need to do that. Like saving a game, challenge yourself. And if after saving the 25, maybe set another goal of 50. And if you're able to save more than 50, maybe you reward yourself with a spa day or a nice dinner or whatever else. So this doesn't have to be punitive. This doesn't have to be really a challenge, but make it a game. The way I make this a game, giving to charity, making donations every year is one of my values, one of my goals. And when I'm able to save more in a month than I planned on, I set that aside or directly give that to charity. And so because that aligns with my goals and my values, I've kind of got a double whammy where I'm building the savings habit and addressing the donations that I'm probably going to make anyway. And so it's a nice way to reward myself and have intrinsic value and feel like I'm not punishing myself for saving, but actually doing what I want to be doing. If you haven't checked your credit score, check it. And then check your credit report. Credit score, credit report are different things. Read your credit report, make sure what's in there belongs to you. Check your credit score, see what the number is. The scores range from about 400 to 850. If your score is less than, say, 650, the national average is around 700. The state of Louisiana has the second lowest average. You can maybe guess which of our neighboring states has the lowest average credit score, one to the east. But if your score is under 650, understand why it's low and see what you can do to improve it. The biggest factor that will lead your credit score to being lower is missed payments, late payments, or any defaulted payments. Your payment history is 35% of your credit score. If you have a troubled payment history that is bringing down your credit score, make a plan. Make sure you're on time with your payments in the future, and begin trying to make a plan for either cleaning up your credit report or continuing to make those on-time payments. As I said earlier, contact your insurance companies. I do this once or twice a year, and I contact 3 different insurance companies. I don't always switch, but changing insurance is more of a commodity today than it was 20, 30 years ago. And all insurance companies offer essentially the same products, different customer service, maybe different platforms and online services, and you may prefer one over the other, but the actual insurance, the protection you're getting is pretty much the same. And so once or twice a year, I will contact 3 different insurance companies, and about once every 2 to 3 years, I will change. Maybe every 3 to 4 years, I'll change, just because the price difference is significant enough where it's worth changing. One that people don't always agree with, students maybe don't always agree with, is get rid of your tax refund. Are you expecting a tax refund? If so, get rid of it. The money, it's not free money. It's not winning the lottery. It's your money all along. The tax refund you get after April 15th, you owned the money. You just gave an interest-free loan to the government. I don't want to give an interest-free loan to the government. I want my money. And so if you fall into the habit of getting a tax refund, go into the human resources, change your withholding, reduce the withholding. Reducing the withholding, that will increase your monthly paycheck. You'll get more of your money each month rather than after getting that money after April 15th. So I want my money sooner rather than later. The other reason to do this is if you're a grad student and your income is relatively low, say $20,000 or $15,000 a year, you're going to get such a huge standard deduction that you're probably not going to owe any taxes or significant taxes, so you're automatically going to get a refund. We'll go into HR, tell them I don't want anything withheld because my income is low enough or below the standard deduction of $15,000 or so, and get your money sooner rather than later. The one caveat to this is if your behavior, your habits, if you're the type of person that takes a tax refund and does something really good with it, paying down debt, investing for retirement, something very positive aligned with your financial goals, then maybe it's okay to get a tax refund. If you're the type of person that takes your tax refund and goes to Jamaica on impulse or indulgence, then maybe you want to get rid of that refund and be methodical. You can still go to Jamaica, but just don't use the tax refund as the excuse to pay for that trip. Be more intentional, more planned with your spending, and enjoy your trip to Jamaica, knowing that you've been saving for it all year. We all have subscriptions we can cancel. Cancel at least one subscription. I give the example, I had a 32 monthly car wash subscription. Each time, if I want to pay a la carte, it costs about $15, so I had to go at least twice a month. I wasn't going twice a month. If you're Amazon Prime, ask yourself if you're really getting all the Prime benefits. There's a lot of pride in being Prime, but Prime is not as cheap as it used to be. So look through your subscriptions, see if you can cancel one or more this year. I bet you can. And then finally, once a month or 1 month a year, do not dine out. Don't go out, whether that's coffee or fast food, whatever. Do not dine out. People hate this one because it's way too ambitious, way too restrictive maybe. So maybe 1 month is too ambitious, and maybe the social side of you doesn't want to do that, right? Fine, great. Do it a weekend, or maybe a week, or maybe you don't dine out on Fridays, or you stop dining out at lunch on work, or you work for lunch. Whatever you can eliminate, if you can eliminate a habit or control or manage a habit, that's going to be a win. Baby steps. If you 1 month a year of not dining out, that's huge. But that may be impossible for many people. But if you can take some baby steps to get better control, that's a big win. Final question of the day. As you're in grad school, make sure you identify why you're in grad school. What are you getting out of this? As far as time, energy, and money, this is the biggest investment you'll ever make. You're giving up years, money, energy. What are you getting? And I'm not asking that cynically. I've been to grad school twice. It's maybe the best investment you can make, but it is a huge investment, and you want to make sure you know why you're there and what you're getting out of it. This is not necessarily a financial question. It's a personal and professional question that will have financial implications. Make sure you have a plan for why you're in grad school. Trying to get to happiness as grad students, it's a delicate tension between short-term and long-term, while imposing family needs and financial needs on all of that. We set our goals, we analyze reality, we create a plan, we execute the plan changes, we adjust the plan, and we rinse and repeat. This is what you've been doing with your education planning for years. Now just apply it to your personal financial planning. The best investment you can ever make is to finish your degree. So disappointed, but disheartened when grad students either have to drop out because of financial reasons or they choose to drop out, not finishing their degree and not capitalizing on their potential. I know I sound very old when I say that, but not graduating with your degree can be very costly. Both the money you spent trying to get the degree or working on the degree and the missed opportunities that the degree will bring you. Get across the finish line and then move on to bigger and better things, personally, professionally, and financially. 2 of the 15 are done, including this one. We'll be back here on this channel, or probably, I keep saying that, I said that yesterday. It's a different channel, it's a different registration and a different link. But we'll be back on the Zoom tomorrow, June 8th at 3 p.m. for financial and tax planning for international students. But maybe there's some information in there. Certainly faculty and staff and advisors could use. Certainly other grad students might be able to use. But we'll be back here tomorrow for that. And then we'll take a couple weeks break and begin talking entrepreneurship on Tuesday, the 20th. I'm Brian Bolton, Professor of Finance at UL Lafayette, right up Bolton at Louisiana. Contact me if you have questions, comments, thoughts. I'll stop sharing. I will stop recording.